Introduction of Why Nations Fail book summary. Ever wondered why some countries thrive while others struggle? In this summary, you'll learn the real reasons why nations grow rich or fall into poverty. You'll find out how simple rules set by leaders can open doors for everyone or lock out most people. You'll explore how choices made long ago shape today's world, proving it's not culture or where a country sits on the map, but the rules we build that win or fail. You'll hear clear examples from different times that show how big results come from small turns at important moments. By watching this, you'll sharpen your view of power and wealth around the world. Listen till the end of the book summary. This video, including its audio and script, is protected by copyright. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or piracy is strictly prohibited and may result in legal action. Welcome to Politics English Book Summary, Episode 5. In this episode, we'll explore 2012 published book Why Nations Fail, written by Daron Acemoglu and James A. Robinson. The full title of the book is Why Nations Fail: The Origins of Power, Prosperity, and Poverty. Chapter 1 of Why Nations Fail book summary. Why borders matter. Have you ever seen two towns side by side but with huge gaps in wealth? On the border of Mexico and the United States, there is just such a place. Nogales, Arizona sits right next to Nogales, Sonora. Yet life there feels worlds apart. People in Nogales, Arizona enjoy better healthcare and schools. Crime is lower and the average household income is 3 times higher. Just a street separates them. But wealth feels miles away? Some say it's all geography. Montesquieu claimed that people in hot climates work less hard than those in cooler places. Today, some point to disease or poor soil in tropical zones like Africa, South Asia, and Central America. But the geography idea falls flat here. Look at South and North Korea. They share the same land and culture. East and West Germany were once one country. Now they stand as two. Botswana, Malaysia, and Singapore have all leapt forward economically. None of this fits a simple climate map. Others blame culture. Max Weber argued that a Protestant work ethic drove Western Europe's rise. But Korea was one culture until it split. Still, South Korea grew rich and North Korea stayed poor. This split shows that culture alone can't explain it. Some think it's lack of knowledge. They say poverty exists because people don't know the right policies. Yet foreign aid and expert advice in Africa have often failed to bring lasting change. There must be a better answer. In this book, we'll find the real reason why some places rise and others fall. Chapter 2 of Why Nations Fail book summary. Power of institutions. Ever wondered why some nations grow rich while others stay poor? It is not about land or culture. It is about the rules that shape daily life. The book shows that economic and political institutions are the real key. Economic institutions set how people do business. They include property laws, public services, and banks. When these institutions are inclusive, everyone can join the game. They support freedom and offer safety. In South Korea and the USA, private property laws and strong schools help people feel sure. They know their ideas can make money. They trust banks to keep their savings safe. This drives hard work and new inventions. On the flip side, extractive institutions take from many to help a few. In colonial Latin America, colonizers forced natives to work and took their land. The system only served the elite. In North Korea, the Kim family outlawed private property. They locked power in a tiny group. People lost freedom and hope. Political institutions can also be inclusive or extractive. Inclusive political rules share power with many groups. This is called pluralism. They also keep power clear and fair. This ensures the rule of law. In this way, citizens and leaders follow the same rules. No group can take over. When political institutions are extractive, they lock out most voices. They block fair elections and weaken law. This worsens economic policies that favor only the few. Inclusive institutions erase these unfair rules. They lead to broad benefits. Everyone can gain from growth. This is why institutions matter so much to a country's success. Inclusive political systems also protect free speech and hold leaders to account. People know they can trust their rights. That trust lets them plan for the future. Chapter 3 of Why Nations Fail. Book Summary. Turning Points Matter. What happens when one event shakes the whole world? In the mid-14th century, the Black Death moved from the Far East to Europe along trade routes. It cut the population almost in half. Homes emptied, fields lay bare. The plague hit towns and countryside alike. It forced new trade paths. Wages shot up. In some areas, peasants paid a fixed rent instead of giving crops. Towns even bought freedom from their lords. New cities rose on these changes. This shock did more than hurt people. It reshaped the old feudal order. Before the plague, feudalism ruled Europe. The king owned all the land. He gave big parcels to lords. Lords supplied soldiers and judged peasants in their courts. Peasants worked the land. They paid most of their harvest as taxes. They could not leave without permission. Then the plague arrived. In Western Europe, workers became scarce. Peasants found they had new power. They asked for lower taxes. They demanded the right to rent or own land. They pressed for fair wages. Some lords gave in. Feudal bonds weakened. New, more open rules emerged. In Eastern Europe, peasants stayed unorganized. Landowners tightened control. They raised taxes even higher. They cut freedoms. Institutions there became more extractive. Peasants lost power instead of gaining it. This split into two paths is called institutional drift. Two sides of the same continent moved in opposite directions. Centuries later, another turning point arrived. Global trade grew and Europe colonized the Americas. Some nations grew rich. Others lagged behind. These moments pushed their institutions off course again. Only a few key events can steer a nation's future. The book shows how these moments work. It reveals why turning points shape the fate of whole regions. Chapter 4 of Why Nations Fail Book Summary. Early Steps to Wealth. Ever wondered why England became rich before anyone else? The secret started centuries ago. In 1215, the Magna Carta gave birth to an early parliament. This was the first big move away from total royal rule. In 1688, the Glorious Revolution changed more. William III took the throne with Parliament's help. In return, Parliament got more power. The king's grip grew weaker. Members of Parliament were chosen by landowners. These lawmakers set up rules that helped people join in business. Thanks to these new rules, property rights were safe. People knew their land and goods were theirs to keep. Then came the Bank of England in 1694. Its job was to lend money to anyone with a good idea. This made starting new businesses easier. Taxes were rethought too. A tax on pots and stoves was dropped. Instead, people paid a tax on land. A bigger team in government collected these taxes. The money went back into roads, schools, and trade. By the 1700s and 1800s, canals and railways crisscrossed the country. Goods moved fast. Factories could ship products all over the world. Trade brought in more profits. Those profits fed back into England's growing economy. All these steps made business safer and more open. They gave people the confidence to try new things. They helped England race ahead in the Industrial Revolution. How did this boom push England's institutions to become fairer? Find out in the next chapter. Chapter 5 of Why Nations Fail. Book Summary. Virtuous Cycles. Have you ever seen one change lead to another? In England, early pluralistic politics set off a chain of growth. When Parliament shared power, each group had to keep the others in check. This kept the system stable. Over the 19th and 20th centuries, the right to vote spread. Landowners lost their exclusive hold. Workers, women, and the poor won the vote. They marched, struck, petitioned, and campaigned. Their push met a system ready to adapt. The wealthy saw that order and success mattered more than power alone. They chose compromise over chaos. As more citizens joined politics, rules grew fairer. Parties had to listen. Laws changed to protect all voices. These steps made economic rules more open too. Businesses found clear laws and safe contracts. People felt confident to invest and trade. In the United States, a similar cycle took shape. At the start of the 20th century, huge trusts like Standard Oil and US Steel ruled big parts of the economy. Their power threatened fair play. The press uncovered their abuses. Newspapers reported on unfair rates and closed markets. Outraged readers demanded action. Presidents Theodore Roosevelt, William Taft, and Woodrow Wilson stepped in. They passed anti-monopoly laws. These laws broke up the trusts. They opened markets to new businesses. Here we see the same pattern. Media keeps power in view. Voters demand change. Leaders set new rules. These rules make politics and economics more inclusive. Each step builds on the last. Inclusive institutions create virtuous cycles. They push societies to become fairer and stronger. Chapter 6 of Why Nations Fail. Book Summary. Power and Progress. Have you ever wondered how rulers hold back change? In 1445, the printing press was born in Mainz. Before 1500, it reached Strasbourg, Rome, Florence, London, Budapest, and Krakow. But the Ottoman rulers banned printing in Arabic. They feared losing control. Muslims could not print books in their own language. It was only in 1727 that they allowed printing. But every page had to be checked by religious and legal scholars. This slowed learning. Students and teachers could not share ideas fast. Books stayed rare and expensive. In the Ottoman Empire, just 2 to 3% of people were literate. By contrast, 40 to 60% in England could read and write. Leaders also fear creative destruction. This is when new technology crushes old industries. For example, sewing machines hurt traditional weavers. In Austria, Emperor Francis I blocked machines until 1811. He even fought against railways. He thought new tools might spark a revolution. He also worried they would kill businesses that backed him in court and politics. As a result, Austria fell behind. In 1883, 90% of the world's iron came from coal-fired factories. Austria still used charcoal for most iron work. It was like the Industrial Revolution skipped that land. Across Europe, other lands embraced steam engines. They built fast machines and cut costs. Austria watched from behind. When the Austro-Hungarian Empire broke apart after World War I, its textile mills still were not fully mechanized. This shows how power run tight can trap a nation. Leaders may protect their own strength. They slow change. This holds back prosperity. The book shows why strong rules must meet new ideas. Only then can countries grow and thrive. Chapter 7 of Why Nations Fail. Book Summary. Enduring Chains. What happens when old rules refuse to fade? Extractive institutions can last for centuries. They shape lives long after they begin. Slavery was in Africa before Europeans arrived in the 17th century. Then colonizers hunted cheap labor for New World plantations. They paid local rulers for slaves. Rulers saw easy profit. War prisoners and criminals were sold in huge numbers. Some communities even used slavery as a regular punishment. Traders brought guns in return for slaves and cotton. Violence only grew. In 1707, the global slave trade ended, yet slavery carried on inside Africa. People still worked by force. They produced goods for local use and for export. Colonial powers then built new extractive systems. Look at Sierra Leone. It was a British colony until 1961. The British set up paramount chiefs to rule for life. These chiefs answered only to the crown. Today, a small tribal council picks them. Only a few elite families can ever become chiefs. Power stays in the same hands. This system is as extractive as it was before. Economic control stayed tight too. In 1949, the British created the Sierra Leone Produce Marketing Board. It promised to protect farmers from wild price swings. But it started charging a small fee that rose to half a farmer's income by the 1960s. Independence did not stop this. In 1967, Shaka Stevens became Prime Minister. He forced farmers to hand over 90% of their income in tax. Many stayed poor and powerless. Why did these systems survive the end of slavery and colonial rule? How did extractive rules cling on? The next chapter will reveal how these chains keep nations trapped. Chapter 8 of Why Nations Fail. Book Summary. Vicious Cycles. What makes poverty last for generations? It often starts when leaders resist change. They build systems that keep them in power. These systems are called extractive institutions. Their goal is to serve a small elite. They lock out the rest of society. Look at the American South in the 19th century. A white land-owning elite made huge profits from black slaves. Slaves had no rights at all. After the North won the Civil War in 1865, slavery ended. Black men won the vote, yet the same elite stayed in charge. They added poll taxes and literacy tests to block black voters. Jim Crow laws then made segregation official. The old rulers found new ways to hold power. German sociologist Robert Michaels called this the iron law of oligarchy. He showed that elite systems tend to survive any change. Even when leaders come and go, the structure stays the same. The same happened in post-independence Africa. Colonizers left behind extractive systems. New rulers kept them going. Take Shaka Stevens, Sierra Leone's first president. He punished the Mende, a group that backed his rivals. He destroyed their railway so they could not export goods. This crushed their economy. He gained more power, but the nation's institutions no longer served its people. Extractive institutions feed on themselves. They twist laws and taxes to favor the few. They block voices and lock out progress. The book shows how these vicious cycles take root. It also reveals what it takes to break free. Chapter 9 of Why Nations Fail Book Summary. Soviet growth, impressive but fragile. How can a country grow fast without giving its people freedom? That's the big question when we look at the Soviet Union. It didn't have inclusive political or economic systems. Yet it grew fast, at least for a while. From its early days until the 1970s, the Soviet Union saw big changes. It launched the first human into space. Its economy grew at about 6% a year between 1928 and 1960. That sounds like success, but the truth is more complicated. Much of that growth came from a simple move, shifting people from farms to factories. Before that, many parts of the Soviet Union were stuck in feudal systems, so moving workers to industry gave a big boost. But this kind of progress doesn't last forever. Workers had no property rights. If they didn't work hard enough, they could be jailed. The political system was just as harsh. A single-party dictatorship ruled with fear. It was a system built on control, not freedom. So while some short-term growth happened, long-term success was always shaky. Innovation didn't really help either. In 1956, the government tried to offer bonuses for new ideas, but they made a big mistake. They measured success by the total wage bill, so if a new machine saved labor, the bonus got smaller. That meant people avoided labor-saving inventions. They were punished for being efficient. Also, creative destruction, where new ideas replace old ones, was blocked. Why? Because change threatened the elite. They didn't want to risk losing power. And when all the power sits at the top, everyone fights for it. That creates instability. The Soviet Union shows us that growth under extractive systems can happen. But without freedom, innovation, or stability, it can't last. Chapter 10 of Why Nations Fail. Book Summary. Breaking the cycle is possible. Can countries trapped in poverty ever escape? Can they break free from corrupt systems and find a better future? The answer is yes, but it's not easy. We've seen how extractive institutions, where power and wealth stay in the hands of a few, can hold back progress. But history shows these systems don't have to last forever. Change is possible. It just takes the right moment and the right push. Take Western Europe, for example. For centuries, their systems were highly unfair. Power was held by a small elite. But things changed. Big moments in history, like the Black Death and the rise of capitalism, opened the door for more inclusive systems. These allowed more people to have a say and take part in the economy. Over time, that led to growth. The same goes for the southern United States. After years of racism and injustice, things started to shift during the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s. The road is still long, but change began when people stood up and demanded fairness. Now here's the big question. How do we help more places do the same? One thing is clear. Foreign aid alone won't do it. Giving money won't fix deep-rooted problems if the system stays broken. What's needed is empowerment. The people who are left out must be given tools to speak up, to organize, and to challenge unfair systems. Brazil shows us how. In the 1980s, it wasn't politicians or experts who brought down the country's military dictatorship. It was the people. Trade unions and everyday citizens rose up. Their voices created a powerful movement. The result? Democracy, and one of the world's fastest growing economies between 2000 and 2012. So yes, the cycle can be broken. It's hard, but it's possible. Conclusion of Why Nations Fail book summary. Power of institutions. We learn that it's not where you live or your culture that makes a country rich or poor. The real drivers are the rules we build, our institutions. Inclusive institutions let many voices join in. They follow clear laws, protect property, and spark new ideas. Extractive institutions do the opposite. They serve a few, block change, and trap people in poverty. Acemoglu and Robinson show how big events, like the Black Death, the Glorious Revolution, and colonial conquest, sent nations down different paths. In England, these moments led to elected parliaments, safe property rights, and wider voting. That fueled the Industrial Revolution. In the Ottoman Empire, Austria, and many post-colonial states, elites tightened control and slowed progress. But history can change. In Brazil, grassroots movements pushed out the military regime. In the American South, civil rights fights expanded democracy. In post-apartheid South Africa, new leaders rewrote the rules for all. These stories prove that breaking old, unfair systems is tough but possible. The big takeaway is simple. We must back fair, inclusive institutions everywhere. When people can shape and trust their own rules, broad-based prosperity can follow. Listen the other book summary. Disclaimer, please check the description. Any digital copy of this content that is shared through piracy or downloaded without permission or uploaded on any online social media platform will be considered a clear violation of copyright law. Piracy is a serious offense and strict legal action will be taken against it. Additionally, copyright infringement may result in a strike against your YouTube channel or page, and it could even be deleted. Therefore, please do not engage in piracy or support it. This content has been created based on the references from the mentioned book. However, it may contain some unintentional errors or inconsistencies due to human or mechanical mistakes. If you notice any mistakes or inconsistencies, please accept our apologies and inform us through a comment or message. If you enjoy this book summary and wish to gain complete knowledge of the book, then please consider purchasing the book from an online or offline bookstore and reading it. Thank you.